So I think that's 11:03. So welcome to the Modo25 webinar on best practice on is affiliate marketing still relevant? Based on some feedback from our last webinar, people wanted to actually understand who Modo25 were. So I'm just going to share 2 or 3 slides on who we are, and then I'm going to introduce Jules Pancioli, who's going to host and chair the session for us. We are live on Facebook, and also we will be recording the session so you can access it and share it with colleagues afterwards. So Modo25 are a marketing technology and in-housing specialist, but the company is actually named after, there's a much sort of bigger picture behind this, and the company is named after a girl who lives in an orphanage in Uganda. And it's not just about making profits for the shareholders at Modo25. We do a lot of charity work and also give a significant part of our profit to help change the life of 280 children. And we've actually named our marketing technology after the gentleman who runs the charity, called Bosco. And our purpose is to help people make big change in their life, but that's also for our team and our clients, but also those less fortunate than us. And also we want to do that by providing them with the right tools, the right opportunities, so that they can prosper. We've got offices in Leeds, London, Prague, and Melbourne, so we're a global business, and we specialize in digital marketing services, agency services, helping people in-house, data science, and also we have some proprietary technology called Bosco. It's not really about us though today, it's about best practice, and we've had the opportunity to work with some amazing clients delivering best practice in digital marketing. So the reason we do these sessions is really to help answer those questions that everybody seems to have around, well, actually, what is the best way to in-house, which was the last one we did, and actually, how do I measure whether or not my affiliates are driving me incremental revenue or not, or should I even be doing affiliates within my market or for my brand? So we thought that's what we're going to cover today. We've got a great panel together. The next session we're going to cover, which seems to be a burning topic, especially on lockdown, is whether to TikTok or not, and that will be on the 18th of June at 4 p.m. We've also had a lot of people in the States asking if we can move the time slightly later so that they can join. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Jules, but just before I do that, we did a quick poll on LinkedIn recently, and this is what LinkedIn had to say about affiliates. And we were quite interested. I think the standout thing there was 52% people felt that they could prove it. So we're quite interested in how they're doing that, because our experience is a lot of people think they can prove it, but actually it's a lot harder than maybe they think. But hopefully that's the case. And what's worrying, I suppose, is 13% of people are doing it, but they don't know why. So over to Jules. I'm just going to introduce Jules. Jules is a long-term friend of mine, both in the industry and also as a cyclist. Both of us share a passion for supporting One More Child, and we're on a mission to cycle to Australia to try and raise over £2 million to support One More Child. So I'll pass over to Jules, who's going to be our chair.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate you taking time out of your days, and what a sunny day it is for most of us. So a bit of housekeeping first. This will be a 1-hour session. It is interactive, so there are a number of polls. All the polls will be anonymous. But after about 40 minutes, we're going to open up to take questions that have been submitted during the session via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So please use the Q&A button if you'd like to submit any questions rather than chat. It just makes it easier for us to filter them and make sure you can participate. So without further ado, let's begin. I, like many of you, have been reflecting in these grim times about what and who has made an impact on me, whether it's friends, family, healthcare workers, or in my professional case, affiliate marketeers and performance marketeers. I started my journey in affiliate marketing 20 years ago which I guess is why I qualify for the word veteran, which does make you feel slightly old. And that in turn created incredible opportunities. First at Skyscanner, which was the start of an 18-year journey. And that in turn created amazing opportunities with companies that are making, I'm amazed by their impact every day. SpaceX, Oratain, 23andMe, companies that are fundamentally impacting the world. But I still have interest in the affiliate field. Nixie, our performance-based company, lead gen company for SMEs, and Selco, which is a Amazon reseller management tool. I've always regarded performance marketing as an elite digital skill set. Arrogantly, yes, but it's a skill set you have to train at and remain current at. And therefore, with that in mind, and to help me answer the big question about whether the affiliate channel is about to experience a new golden age, or whether it's about to fade away and be overtaken by more upstream methods of marketing, I'd like to introduce our exceptional, amazing, and talented panel to you. So, Jess, if I could start with you.
Oh, hang on, let me get Jess off mute.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm Jessica Brown. I'm the agency partner at Awin Global. I've worked across the digital landscape over the past 7 years. So I've always had a focus around the world of agencies, really, previously working publisher side at the Group and Reach network. So VoucherCloud, Groupon, Mirror, The Guardian and Mumsnet. I've worked across a range of nationally recognized advertisers and affiliate platforms. And then having recently moved to Awin last month, I'm now looking at agency partnerships from a network perspective and how affiliates can be brought into the world of agencies.
Thank you, Jess. Lee?
Hi, so I'm Lee Carter. I'm the Marketing Acquisition Manager at PrettyLittleThing.com. We're an online fast fashion brand. You've probably seen our pink taxis everywhere. My worked in affiliates for about 2 years. My background is marketing data analysis. So I've worked at the likes of Coca-Cola. I've worked in the gambling industry and a few other places, and helping brands kind of do this, kind of work out how to prove the incrementality of the various marketing channels.
Thank you. Shri?
Hey guys, good to meet you all. My name is Shri Sharma. I'm CEO and co-founder of Increasingly. We're a machine learning technology that helps retailers boost AOV and revenue. My background goes back quite a long time in the affiliate space. I was one of the first users of Google AdWords and was involved in the affiliate space in the early days using paid search. I founded NMPI. And then subsequently founded Increasingly. And we certainly operate through the affiliate space still, so hence I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri. John, could you hit us with your first couple of polls, please? Or first questions in the first poll? So we unfortunately couldn't stretch to having some background hold music, so please answer them as quickly as possible, otherwise I'll be forced to hum a tune, and you really don't want that.
I'll stop it when we get over sort of 50% of people. Then that's a reasonable sample, I think. So there we go.
So first question, obviously very much consistent with the results John shared at the start. So overall a belief that is impactful and you know, varying degrees about whether you can prove it or not, but overall you can. And still relatively low percentages coming from the channel, but perhaps more than we might have expected. You know, it'd be interesting to see how that's grown over the past couple of months. So with that in mind, I'd like to bring in our first major question. And that is that there are often opinions around affiliates being a dishonest channel. perhaps not reflected in this poll result when compared to paid search and SEO. To my panel, what do you think? Why do you think this is, and how do we move past the negative reputation that the channel's history has resulted in? And Shri, if I could bring you in first here, because I guess this is a conversation that you have with clients often.
I'll be honest, I don't really have that kind of conversation, Jules. I think
just therefore we didn't. This is not pre-canned.
yeah. Look, I think historically there's definitely been that reputation in some cases, especially in the early days, because certainly was a bit of the Wild West, and affiliates would take over, and you know, brand reputation might be a concern, let's say, for some brands, and certainly with some advertisers. I remember, it wasn't ASOS who coined, one of the co-founders of Incrementality coined the quote, the grubby affiliate. I don't think that's the same landscape today. I think it's all got a lot more mature and professionalized. If you're a publisher and you own a site and you've got an audience, you know that to retain your audience, you need to have a professional outfit. And many affiliates are not one-man bands anymore. They're organizations, from voucher sites to big publishers like The Telegraph. And in my case, we're an on-site technology. And so we don't really get that kind of question come up. But I'm sure it's still a concern, because in any event where you're releasing your brand to others and saying, represent me, there's going to be a concern, right? And that's where the crux of it lies.
Thank you. Lee, what's your perspective?
I kind of completely agree with Shri. I think, you know, I've heard some horror stories from years ago and things like that. But I think, like Shri's saying, you know, some of these publishers that are out there are huge organizations, and you know, we go and visit them and stuff, and their offices are bigger than ours, kind of thing. They are sort of genuine, kind of real companies. I think there's always going to be, you know, I think if you've worked in this industry for more than sort of 5 or 6 years, I think you're always going to have the horror stories in the back of your mind, because like we said, you know, there were some cowboys out there and things like that. But I think, again, it's like people are realizing the incrementality that affiliates can add to their business. And because of that, affiliates have had to kind of clean up a bit. And the ones that are left are the ones that are the cleanest, shall we say.
Excellent. Jess, having crossed over agency to SaaS, is there any perspective you can bring?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is slightly outdated. You know, affiliates is no longer an emerging trend. Like, we're talking 20+ years of affiliate marketing with established IAB standards felt across the majority of key players. And I think certainly from my experience working with Awin advertisers and publishers, this is sort of the IAB rules are very much there, so it's a lot more regulated. I think as a channel, we're also able to offer a high level of transparency around who advertisers are working with, so who the publishers are, and how much they're paying to the publisher, like with the metrics that we've got. IAB have recently published this year's report as well, and I know the latest survey found that affiliate marketing grew 8.4% year on year. So, you know, it's not a small channel anymore for a lot of major advertisers. I'm sure Lee can sort of go into more about that. But, you know, also comparing it to sort of the PPC side of things, the challenges around bot traffic is sort of synonymous with PPC and blind display networks, from that sort of CPC and CPM setup that we used to back in the day, where there isn't so much of a diverse mix of publishers. So with affiliates, obviously you can quickly spot the spikes and then in traffic and sales, and also like assess that. So it offers like a bit of control and brand protection and policing the space as well.
I think to add on to like Jess's point as well, I think when you compare affiliates to kind of PPC, like, you know, PPC is kind of hugely reliant on Google, and obviously everybody knows Google, and it's kind of almost a trusted name. Whereas, you know, with affiliates, when you've got, you know, what people think is just one guy running a voucher code site in his garage kind of thing. When you compare that to running something with Google, obviously you're going to go with the global brand that you know. And I think that is kind of, you know, that image has kind of worn away over time, and now people are realizing that, you know, working with something that's a bit more independent is a bonus.
Yeah. John, not sure if you've got anything to add on that. It might be worth thinking about the necessity of how having the affiliate channel in your mix is an important part of your brand diversification strategy, I suppose.
Well, I think what at Lee's point is very valid, and a lot of people have gone down to that sort of Google default route. And actually, what they're finding is that they've almost hit this sort of digital maturity point where actually the gains they're getting for every extra pound they're spending with Google are no longer returning the right amount or enough profit. So it's becoming less and less profitable the more they spend. So they're almost at saturation, and actually they haven't spent the time investing in other channels and other alternative sources of traffic for whatever reason. So I think it is a hugely important part of the mix. And then I suppose it's also measuring and ensuring that you measure that properly. So we're absolutely trying to help retailers have a varied mix so they're not just reliant on one channel. So actually you can remain flexible. If the CPCs start going up, you can get alternate traffic.
So John has beautifully segued into the next question block. So maybe go...
Jules, one other point on that. What I also find quite farcical is just how much trust we put in Google and how willing we are, because they're a big brand, to go, yeah, but it'll be fine on Google. To go crazy on the display network, you know, don't worry about the settings, it'll all be fine. But you'll end up bidding on words that aren't appropriate. It'll end up showing on sites that aren't appropriate. But we let that go because it's Google. But when it's an affiliate, there's a lot more concern, right? It's amazing the power of brand. I always marvel at that.
So maybe Lee, how should we measure affiliates most effectively?
So I think, you know, the whole digital marketing world is going through a bit of a change where we move away from last click. So at PLT, a lot of our reports are still based in last click, but we also have access to attribution data via GA, but we also work with an attribution partner via Awin, and that's been really helpful to kind of give us a full view. So when, you know, our finance team or our marketing directors are asking questions, we can prove the full impact that someone's had on the journey. I think, you know, as the digital world has grown and grown every year, we don't live in that world anymore where someone searches for a product, clicks on the first thing they find, and then they buy it. People are influenced by so many outside sources. So having something like an attribution tool is really great, just to prove how all of these things kind of tie in together, and there's not just that one kind of last click person that gets all the glory.
So Jess, obviously very appropriate to bring you in here. Maybe you could talk a bit about your attribution model at Awin and how you overcome that last click goal hanger.
Yeah, I think it's important to start off saying that there have been a lot of reports sort of published around the incrementality of the affiliate channel, including one by SingleView. And Awin have a really close relationship with the platform, which offers like full visibility on the customer journey. And we often see reports come out with a higher conversion rate where affiliates have been involved in the journey, which is, I think, should be shouted about a lot more. So that could be from any point from sort of higher up the purchasing funnel to sort of mid to lower or even solo. And as a network, Awin also offer ways to sort of reward on an alternative attribution basis. So Lee sort of touched on it with the assist data tracking. And that helps to determine and reward the sort of true value of a publisher and brand partnerships, not also necessarily on a last click payout. So the single view attribution analysis reporting of Awin clients so far has shown that affiliates make a sale 10% more likely with like an affiliate in the journey. So you know, it's not like a small sort of percentage, it's really like increasing there. So where advertisers decide to implement as well, we're also encouraging deduping of sales via sort of tag management solutions and the channel parameter solutions. So, you know, there's a mix of ways there that we can really measure and show the sort of wider journey and what's happening higher up the funnel, not just on a last click basis, and being able to reward on that, I think, has been really important for sort of content and emerging publishers that sort of may have missed out on the last click model.
Fascinating. I guess, Shri, your bundling technologies might play an important role in rethinking, you know, what and how you measure affiliate effectiveness here.
Yeah, so on the bundling point, so we're an on-site technology and we boost the AOV on a site because we took the concept very simply from Amazon, where they have something called frequently bought together, and it's used in the physical world, all the time, and it's only used by Amazon, and 95% of retailers do it manually or don't do it at all. And that boosts revenue 10 to 15% entirely for the entire site revenue, which obviously means that all of the affiliate revenue also goes up 10 to 15%. And we've done multiple incrementality tests that proves it. So what we're trying to do is also operate through the affiliate channel. And through doing that, we become another means to boost the whole channel. And it's all very measurable because, you can measure it. And I think that's really, really powerful. And it also gives variety to the affiliate mix because, it can get a bit staid with the traditional, oh, we're a standard publisher, oh, we're a voucher code, oh, we're a cashback. And I think that's important to give newness and innovation to the channel, which is what we're trying to power. Yeah.
Fantastic. John, not sure if you build on any of that. And then when you have, if I could perhaps ask you to deploy the next poll, that would be brilliant.
I think the point about all of this is proving the incrementality. We work with a lot of, and I think Lee hit it right. If you get it right, you can prove and unlock more budgets. And again, I think the problem is as Sri also highlighted before, is people seem to have this default Google thing. So our view is it's all about measurement and ensuring that you've got the right measurement in place to drive it forward. But it has to be part of the mix. It has to be. So
Can I add one other point that I think is quite interesting to what John and Jess said? So, if you wind back 20 years ago, in marketing, you needed to see a brand from like 5 times before you felt comfortable to be able to buy. Today, it's kind of like 12 plus times you need to see a brand. So Jess's point around, if the affiliate has been in the mix, you're seeing the brand more often. And you don't pay for that, by the way, if they don't buy. But you're seeing them more because the banners are present, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's a very interesting point if you compare that world 20 years ago to today. And if you even wind it forward just only literally 2 years, when we go into a world where, for example, cookieless tracking and all that kind of stuff, and we say, well, there'll be no more, people being followed around the web, and remarketing will be impacted, and all these different ad techs will be influenced and affected. Well, actually, it makes this multiple touch points with a brand even harder to achieve. So arguably, there's even another benefit. Just the brand halo is a huge benefit here of the affiliate channel.
Yeah, I think just to add with that as well, with affiliate marketing, there's like a relatively low risk CPA model, like you were saying, Shri. So it comes on top a lot with like ROI metrics. I don't know, Lee, if you've got any experience of that from PrettyLittleThing, but I think it's really like cost effective, and that's something that gets not as highlighted as it should be to sort of advertisers.
Yeah, definitely. I think, if you're still working a business where you're very sort of focused on last click, you can very easily kind of pivot an affiliate model to look very good on last click, but you might not see the incrementality that you're hoping for. But when we signed up with Single View, one of the things that we found, when you look at all of the journeys that feature affiliates, only 40% of those were the last touch. So the other 60% are still kind of mid-funnel, upper funnel, introducing people. I think it's I think people kind of fall into a bubble of just thinking that it's just discount and it's just cashback. I think there's a whole other side to affiliates that people kind of forget about.
So thank you, everyone. John, if you could deploy the next poll. Just while he's doing that, we've got some amazing questions coming through on the Q&A. So thank you, everyone who's contributed those. And we'll spend about another 15 minutes on our agenda and then switch fully over to yours. So what are the biggest challenges that you associate with using affiliates? Attribution, there you go. Case in point, the key challenge, and certainly some of the questions for the audience relate to that as well. So great. I'm sure, John, you and your colleagues possibly could follow up with some extra information for the attendees on the attribution point as well.
Yeah, no, we will absolutely do that. And also, if there's any unanswered questions in the Q&A, we will respond to those directly after the session as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So panel, do you have any views on the types of goods or service that are better suited to effective affiliate programs? Because let's face it, some things just don't work.
I would potentially disagree. I think because of the wide range of affiliates, I think regardless of kind of what industry you work in, there is a space for you. I think one of the problems I've seen is a lot of brands go into affiliates, they give out a load of 25% discount codes, they don't really see the incrementality, they've given away a load of margin, and they kind of think, oh, well, it's not very good. And I think if you're going to go into affiliates, you have to kind of fully understand what do you want to achieve out of it. Yeah. So if you're after brand awareness, or you want loads of really cool content sites to write about your new products, go down that avenue. I think one of the good things with affiliates is you are in charge of the people you work with. So if you don't want to give out discount and cashback, you don't have to. You can just work with content sites. If you want some really, really cool cutting edge tech, that's there. And, you know, like things that are like increasingly, you know, pushing that forward. So I think, yeah, it's just kind of having that full understanding of when you go into affiliates, like what do you want to use it for?
So from the brand perspective, how do you think about tiering versus different affiliate types, and really trying to match product to particular affiliates?
Yeah, I think we're quite lucky at PLT. We're quite a data forward business, so we've got a lot of data. And then obviously working with attribution now, we've got even more data. So we kind of look at individual affiliate types, and sometimes we even go down to individual publishers. And if there's someone that performs particularly well upper funnel, but maybe isn't seeing those last click conversions, maybe we'll give them a bit more, maybe we'll put some tenancy behind it. So they still get paid at the end of the day. They still feel like they're getting some of the relationship, but also we're benefiting hugely because they're driving new customers into the funnel. Whereas if there's someone at the end of the funnel that maybe we think, you know, they do help with conversion, but maybe they're not driving a huge amount of incrementality, we might negotiate a different rate with them, just so we're kind of, you know, we're not impacting our margin too much, or I don't get shouted at by my CFO kind of thing. I think it's affiliates is one of those ones where you have to put in the effort, and you kind of have to build relationships with almost all of the publishers you work with. And once you get into those relationships and stuff, that's kind of when things start to happen. But yeah, it can be daunting, and I don't think there are many people that could start an affiliate program next week and it just go up and running. It does take a lot of time and a lot of planning.
So Jess, you've obviously crossed both sides of the world, platform and agency. What products have you seen, or goods and services have you seen work really well?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to the diversity of publishers and the reach available to advertisers. It allows for almost any brand, no matter their niche or sector, to be able to find a relevant database to work with. And obviously we aren't limited just to cost per acquisition model. The channel also supports like subscription-based cost per lead and fixed fees to allow working with influencers as well, and the lead generation email partners. But I think almost anything with a transactional digital site can work in the affiliate space. For example, a huge one that can't at the moment is Primark, because obviously they've not got like a transactional online site, which is definitely more challenging when it comes to tracking in-store activity, because we're bound by sort of their capabilities as retailers and tech. But I think if they're set up with offline to online tracking, you know, it's not impossible. The ones that I would say are more challenged, sort of working across big affiliates to get approvals, would be the likes of B2B, as like many sites are geared up to serve sort of B2C content. And also anything with legal restrictions, such as those like tobacco, CBD and gambling products. They're like always worth checking sort of over any ASA guidelines around the marketing and age restricting. I think that's sort of, they're the only ones that really spring to mind of being a little bit challenging, being publisher side as well, that we'd sort of get approval on. But yeah, I think B2B space is possibly one that could be sort of more emerging, and something that's a bit of an opportunity within affiliates to grow more.
So we'll pick up on the influencer point in a few minutes. But Shri, what are your top tips? What products have you seen work best, possibly apart from some of Lee's?
Yeah, look, I have to agree with what Lee and Jess said. I think, quite frankly, you know, if you step back, if you've got an audience of your own for a traditional affiliate, if you've got an audience, most things are going to work. But you're going to naturally see consumable goods or goods that are lower price lower value are going to shift more than super expensive. And I think possibly the others, please agree with me or disagree with me, but if you look, the volume of goods sold, if they're normal priced, they're going to shift easier, and therefore there's going to be more. So less of the luxury and more of the normal AOV type items. So the 10 to £100 will shift more in volume, but quite frankly, it could be anything. And from an increasingly standpoint, we work with any retailer as long as they sell a variety of products online. So it's kind of independent of what vertical in retail.
So more direct response and sort of consideration, stroke awareness, premium type things. John, not sure if you're coming on that?
Definitely, that's true, definitely.
I think I agree with everybody. I also think sometimes the luxury end of the market, because it is lower volume, tends to shy away from it, and because they're nervous about their brand. However, because it's on a CPA basis, and if the average order value and the margin is high, you don't need a huge amount of them to prove it works. So, and again, you can control where you publish. I think that's the bit people think is difficult. It's you can choose how you do it and who you do it with. So I do think a lot of the large super luxury and higher end luxury are missing out on this channel because they're nervous about it. But it's still very valid for them. But I do agree that the lower value, more consumable stuff seems to be where the volume is.
In the interest of time, I'm just going to move to a panel quickfire question now. Just very briefly, maybe one or two bullet points from each of you. What are your top tips for technologies that brand marketeers or agencies who participate in this call should make sure they've got in their toolkit? Maybe start with you, Jess. Easy one for you.
Yeah, so obviously working at Awin, have to plug that, but the solution marketplace on Awin is open to advertisers and publishers, and it's a great way to sort of view a huge range of tech and program add-ons, so improving customer experiences, data and tracker capabilities, anything like that. It's a bit of a one-stop shop for the affiliate landscape. But I think my must-have when managing affiliate program and campaigns is like a quick and easy reporting suite. Obviously, having worked across all kinds of affiliate networks and SaaS platforms providers in my 5 years publisher side, I obviously got to see the good, the bad and the ugly. But it would really affect my whole level of what I could pull insights and sort of the depth of a performance review for an advertiser. So depending on which tracking platform is being used by one advertiser or agency group, it could sort of shift my whole mood of how I'm going into that meeting. So I think like the Awin Master Tag for advertisers is something we've also worked hard on as a network to implement. So new brands coming into the network, it's like sort of compulsory where possible. So, and that unlocks like accurate tracking and isn't invasive towards customers. But it also allows for future proofing of data capture for any browser changes, which is obviously quite relevant recently.
Jess, so Lee, your top sentence on technology?
I would say attribution. Even if you're a smaller business and you can only get the limited data out of Google Analytics, like start looking at the full journey because that will affect where you put your money.
Is there a particular tool that's your favorite for checking?
So we use Single View at the moment via Awin, and I spent a good year and a half of my life kind of researching.
See, Jess, you didn't need to plug yourself at all. Jess, Lee's just gone straight in there.
No,
anything else apart from Awin, Lee?
So I mean, in Australia, we work with Rakuten, who's another network, and they offer some different reporting to Awin, and some of that's been good. But yeah, I think it's accuracy of reporting and just kind of getting as much data as you can for as much of the funnel as you can.
Yeah. So Shri, just very briefly from you, I'm keen to give some airtime to the influencer question, which we're all keen to get onto.
Sure, I'll be quick. So I think, look, the poll has kind of said it. There's some confusion around attribution, and therefore that one needs to be fixed, whether you're a large or small retailer. So I think Single View would be a great one to recommend and to use. They're also friends of mine. Then there's also, and on the other spectrum, why wouldn't you want a paid and performance technology that's going to boost your entire program and site revenue by 10 to 15%? So I can't help but plug increasingly. And probably a third one might be, especially if you think about post-COVID, you're going to see a massive push to advertising again. And in that massive push, there's going to be competition, and brands are going to think about, I think, promotion. And so you might want to look to technologies such as Unicodo, who are trying to segment your vouchering and automate it, so you don't have to create millions of voucher codes for each segment. And so that might be an interesting one to look at. Fantastic.
So we've actually got a couple of questions coming from the audience about the use of influencers in affiliate marketing, and I'm particularly interested in also the the online offline sort of influencer map as well. But I'll read out the question from one of the audience here. I'm really interested in how to link influencer marketing with an affiliate proposition and affiliate marketing, as they are both very siloed in our business, and we do both very heavily. How do you recommend approaching this? Lee, I think you've probably got views on this.
Yes, I think our brand was basically built on the back of influencers. So I think because we're a bit of a unique case, because we do so much influencer marketing, we have a PR team that deal with the big influencers, kind of like a household name, and then the smaller micro influencers we work with via Awin and as an affiliate. Again, because we have access to this attribution data, we can see the impact they're having on the funnel. I think the thing you'll find is there are very few influencers out there that can post something and sell something in last click. I think, influencers are there to influence people. They're there to say, look at this cool brand, look at this thing I'm wearing, look at this thing I've got, it's cool. And then you go and find out about the brand, and then maybe a week down the line, you end up clicking on a PPC ad or coming via like an organic or something. So I think with influencers, it's you need that full funnel view. Because when we look at the attribution data, they perform really well. But when you look on the last click data, you do kind of think to yourself, why are we doing this? And it's just kind of understanding where they fit in, because a cashback site has to be at the last click so people get the cashback. But someone like an influencer, they're not there to sell the product, they're there to sell your brand. So it's just kind of understanding where they fit in and how to measure that.
John, do you think you'd like to bring in on this one? I guess maybe we've got another question related to virtual gifts and,
The whole influencer thing, and again, we've worked with lots of different influencers directly for clients, and then we've worked via different affiliate platforms for clients. And then there's also these now new influencer-only technology partners that are trying to sort of muscle in the middle and manage it. And I think if it can make a brand engage with an audience to promote their brand, and I think Lee's point's right, you've got to measure what you're trying to achieve with the influencers and what you're trying to set out. And I think that's where people go wrong, is often they're just like, I did this campaign with these influencers and I didn't sell this instantly. And they think it was a failure. And then actually what happens is somebody got influenced by that campaign and then phones them up and they want to stock them in Tesco's. And they wouldn't have had that if it wasn't from that brand visibility. So I think for me, if it can help agencies and brands manage micro influencers and smaller influencers better, doing it through the affiliate channel just makes sense.
Or you're on mute.
I was going to say, I think that's been pretty well answered.
Jess, anything you build there?
Just around sort of the rewarding where people are driving awareness, such as on an influencer basis. So, that Awin assisted reporting does put the spotlight on those performance driving sort of influencers and can be tracked through traditional affiliate networks, which I think, where to touch upon what John was saying about other people sort of, or brands paying for extra tools, I think it's already available arguably, and just hasn't sort of been utilized for that, because it may sit within different teams such as PR and marketing when it could sit within affiliates. So I think the influencer channel could be maybe save some money on that basis as well, on like working on a CPA basis, or obviously it's set up for other payments as well for paying out on content. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that could be more utilized by advertisers.
So one of our first questions was from Robert, so thank you for this. Will coins and virtual gifts direct from consumers and audiences on the likes of TikTok and other platforms change the order and process of how influencers stroke affiliates generate income for brands? Do you think the particular rise of these newer technologies and channels will have any influence on what you've just said, anyone?
I think potentially. When Instagram launched their like shoppable links, we were kind of one of the first brands to jump on it, and we've seen some positive results from that. So yeah, if there is a potential where an influencer could potentially sell a product directly from an app like Instagram or TikTok, I think again, if it cuts the steps out from being influenced to purchasing, I think it's a good thing. But yeah, it's still with finding that people don't necessarily want to buy through Instagram or TikTok. They will look at something and then come out of it and then go via like the browser that they trust.
John, oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's such a fascinating and interesting space. I think there's two kind of dynamics there. One is the payment, right? And the coin being the payment. And I think definitely as these platforms rise, people will be happy to be paid in a different way. Definitely. But then interestingly, I think if you can complete the order on the likes of TikTok, or, you know, yesterday Facebook announced some new tech integrations that you can buy directly on Facebook and Instagram. I think that's a massive opportunity that's going to open up in the coming literally couple of years, where we're going to see a massive shift in commerce happening on the social media platforms. And I just think that's such a huge opportunity, and something we're building for, to be able to help retailers be able to push dynamically into those environments. But I'm very excited about that space, because that's going to be a huge change for e-commerce as we know it.
So John, could I just ask you to deploy the next poll, which was the influencer one? And while you're doing that, Jess, I'm not sure if you've got any thoughts on the subject so far?
Yeah, I think from a network and sort of building out cross attribution and getting a wider picture, which I think we've touched on quite a bit in this talk, it's like the more the advertiser can share on their data setups, including the third-party measurement tools, we can obviously look to cross attribute with the likes of Awin's data. And I think the more we can reward based on what's important to the brand's individual KPIs, so the more visibility we've got as a channel, the more we can sort of share out that sort of rewarding on where the traffic's coming from. For example, like travel content publishers, they may have assisted in a sale made by an incentive publisher and then driven a new customer, which might be really important for like some sort of brand KPIs. So you may want to reward that content publisher to keep the new customers coming in from further up the channel. And I think that's relevant for the influencer space as well. But it's about sort of allowing that wider picture across all these new emerging channels such as TikTok and where the sales are coming from. So I think it's, really important to have that wider view for advertisers to share with their sort of across all tech providers.
Well, thank you for that. And also, I guess if you look at the results of the poll, still relatively mixed, but mainly underserved, or heavily underserved, actually, in terms of using the affiliates. So maybe there's an opportunity to create a Avon Lady Mark II, for those of you that are old enough to remember them. So we've had a number of questions come in about platforms and technologies. And actually, I'm wondering whether and how you should manage affiliates. So I'm actually, John, I'm just going to ask you to deploy the next poll as well, which is, how do you currently manage your affiliates? And one of the questions we've had in is, would you recommend a business works with multiple networks? And how do relatively small online retailers make affiliates cost effective, given that to make it effective it requires quite a lot of dedicated time, effort, and I would say technology. Now, Hannah, I'm not sure if you'd like to come in on any of those points.
Yeah, I think around sort of measurement and best practice, like it's always good to sort of have as many sources of data and info, and making sure you're sort of sharing that across your various networks. I think it's in my opinion, I would have one network. I wouldn't try to work across too many, just because then you're sort of spreading yourself a bit thin. So it might be a bit easier to work with one. But I think it sort of depends on the sector as well, because obviously different sectors work in different ways. And they have very different ways of measuring success with varying sort of commission structures and the publishers they work with. So, you know, comparison versus discount sites, for example. But I think as well, the expectations and outcomes differ when we measure by voucher code usage, returning customers, if loyalty is a KPI, or new customers, and then that could suit different sort of tools and technologies that you sort of implement. But yeah, hopefully that sort of touches on it a little bit.
Interesting. So John, I know you've got views on how to make the accessibility of data easier for businesses large and small. And so I'd like to bring you in here, please.
You know, I think the way to manage it is it's really, I suppose, if you understand the full funnel view of where the opportunities lie. I think going back to what we're talking about right at the beginning, the world's become too Google focused. And actually, is the question actually, how do I make money from the internet? And how do I find my customers online? I think you've got to, I would suggest, and again, this sort of goes against what we're actually trying to promote, which is in-housing and learn how to do it yourself, and use the best technology to plan that and predict where it's going to go with our tool Bosco. But I think to start with, I think you probably do need to use an agency who knows what they're doing, who can teach you how to do it and help you along the line, but they're backed up with a network or some SaaS technology via a network to give you the best of both worlds. Because I think it's also understanding that relationship across channel, or the full funnel view, because that's the bit where it starts getting complicated for a client. And it takes a lot of time and effort to really dig into it. And also there's a lot of relationship building required with all the different affiliate platforms and the people at the networks. So I think to answer the question about how should you manage it, I'd say start with an agency who works with a strong selection of platforms potentially, but a platform that's right for your business, I would say.
Sri, any views?
Probably just one to add, which is, I guess, you know, you have to kind of think about your scale, and based on your scale, kind of bandwidth comes into it. And, you know, I totally agree with Jess, and I agree with everyone's points, but I think, you know, depending on your scale, if you've got different geographic areas, you can use different networks to learn different things, and also perhaps one is more of a specialist in one geo or vertical. But then you have to come back to your scale and actually go, what have I got bandwidth to do? And you just try and do a few things, which is kind of my overriding principle: do a few things, but do them super well. So in how you think about it, you just need to use that principle.
So the international point is a great one. Lee, I'm not sure, could you expand on how you think about your use of affiliate marketing internationally?
Yeah, so we operate globally, and one of the ways we've grown our affiliate programs is by relying on the expertise from the networks. Obviously, we have account managers in those countries, and they know the market a lot better than we do. But also, it's kind of it's an opportunity to kind of piggyback on the back of affiliate brands in other markets. So, like the affiliate space in the US, some of those brands are huge, and if you can, book some exposure with them or build a relationship with them, you kind of already got one foot in the door, because you've got this huge brand that people are really loyal to, with millions of subscribers shouting about your brand. I think it's it's kind of finding out the big players over there within kind of your space, within your vertical, and then kind of trying to use their audience to kind of get your brand in front of the right people.
Fantastic. So we've got a few specific or channel specific questions that have come in. A couple of them I'm going to ask the Modo25 team to reply to directly. So Lisa Lee, for instance, will come back to you directly on your one, since it's platform specific to Jess. There's a question from an anonymous attendee. What do you think about the new Facebook shopping proposition, and how will it affect our channel? Anyone like to come in on Facebook?
I think one of the things we've always found, kind of with my background in data, is that Facebook are very, very shy about sharing data. So you get a number at the end and they say, we've done this, and it's very difficult to kind of prove the incrementality. And even when they do incrementality tests, it's very difficult to find out how they actually did it. So I think it's going to be a useful tool to have. I think we are going to see it take off, because I think, you know, people are spending more time indoors and more time on Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, it's a difficult one to kind of pinpoint the impact that it'll have in terms of incrementality, just because of the amount of data that Facebook will share with us, with Google, with an attribution partner is very, very small.
I think incrementality aside, and by the way, we can always assume that it's going to be heavily biased. As we know from anything on, for example, Google's approach to incrementality is sillily biased. So I think incrementality aside, it's just going to be a place where people will want to shop, as long as it all works, which is some of the challenges that the Facebooks and obviously Instagram too are having to set up the plumbing. So for example, they're pulling in BigCommerce and they'll pull in Magento to set up all of that plumbing. And I know some of the partners, some of the team there, it's actually quite a job. And they've already been doing this for some time with demo clients, with trial clients, and experimenting. But they're going to get there, and obviously it's what Google tried to do as well, when you could, you know, buy FMCG goods directly on Google Shopping. So it's where people want to be. It's a destination. So incrementality aside, it's just going to be so important. I literally think it could be 10, 20, 30% of e-commerce one day, because, you know, Google, Facebook ecosystems are just so vast.
Yeah. And I also think it really helps out brands who are trying to go direct to consumer. So I suppose if you look at the recent move of Heinz, who a lot of these big brands said, we're never going to go direct to consumer, the supermarket's our customer and this, that and the other, but you can go onto Heinz and you can buy your products and your cans and they'll now arrive at your house because of the current situation. But again, if you want to test out going direct to consumer, it's almost like you can have this headless commerce now, and you can just go with it with some clever feed technology. You can publish your products and you can launch them onto different platforms without necessarily having the cost, admin or hassle of running a whole e-commerce website. So I think it opens up a whole load of testing opportunities and scaling opportunities for brands of all shapes and sizes.
It'd be interesting to see how that's regulated, though. I think going back to some of the you know, when affiliates first started out, it was all quite, you know, cowboy, as Sheree sort of described it as. And I think it'll be interesting to see how social media as a shopping platform is regulated and who's going to be responsible for that. Because obviously if it's Facebook itself, then, you know, how trustworthy are we of that?
I mean, that does feed into a number of questions we've had from the audience coming in here. Like, for instance, how is it fair to allow some affiliates to monetize their offering versus via CPA when they appear on the advertising site itself? So the role of affiliates within channel platforms, I think, is a you know, area of question. So we're last 5 minutes or so. Keen to bring us back to a couple of big questions in here. I think it's unavoidable to not discuss explicitly the role of the current crisis on how we see the affiliate market evolving in the future. And John, if I could just ask you just to complete and feedback the results of the last poll, but if I could throw it open to the panel now, how do you see the world of affiliate marketing being affected by COVID and the world beyond? We've got about 3 minutes.
I'll take that one first, and I'll be quick. I think it's, if anything, it's going to, what I see and happening already, and I think what's going to happen is digital has become more pertinent for all retailers, because it's one of their only channels they've got now. And the senior folk within those retailers or brands are now looking at digital and trying to understand it more. And ultimately, what I think they'll be doing is going, blimey, how much do we pay Google? All right, is that good value? And where else can we get this traffic from? Actually, isn't it a much better idea just to pay on cost per acquisition? So I think there could be, because of the increased focus and scrutiny from senior people with the money, there could be a resurgence of affiliates. And I think as long as you have the right channel mix and measurement in place and support around how to do it properly, I think it could be interesting chimes for the channel.
And just to kind of add on to John's point, that's exactly kind of what we've seen at our brand, where everyone's going online. It's getting more and more expensive to do PPC. Felix is still providing a good ROI, so we've kind of not been given unlimited budget, but we've kind of been said, if you can achieve this with this, what could you achieve if we gave you a bit more, kind of thing, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, I think what we've seen at Awin in the current situation, we actually did a piece on it that you can access if you search coronavirus health on Awin. But it's basically seen a lot of smaller retailers coming through and almost benefiting from it, which is sort of a bit dodgy to say, but it's nice. There's a nice story there of like more niche retailers and publishers coming through and benefiting from the increase in demand. So where the really big, well-known brands can't necessarily supply the demand, you're seeing these more artisan niche advertisers and retailers coming through and selling to the wider sort of reach of that. Some of an interesting as well. Oh, I've been unmuted. One of the interesting...
You're getting quite a lot of reverb on your line, I think.
Yeah, one of the interesting reports we saw was...
Just in time, do you mind if I bring the other in?
Yeah, I actually agree with what's been said. I think from a different angle, if you look at marketing over the last years, it's only become more and more fragmented and complex. And I think in that world of fragmentation, every single channel that you have available to you is going to be important. And therefore, you need to consider, a channel that potentially is giving you 10–20% of your revenue, or has the potential to do that, from my experience. You just need to kind of dive in and make it as optimal as possible. And obviously we've talked about loads of ways to do that, but it's certainly got a future for those reasons.
Lee?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what's been said. I think there's a huge amount of opportunity, and sometimes it does feel a bit weird to potentially be profiting off of a global pandemic, but I think as more and more things kind of move online, there's just, it's another channel that you can exploit to kind of, increase revenue, increase your brand awareness.
So with 1 minute left or so, we're going to go for one-word answers from each of our panel now. I'm going to say 2 words, and I'd like you each to give me the first word that comes back into your head. No swearing or profanity, please. We'll start with John. Affiliate marketing.
Successful.
Jess, ROI.
Attribution.
Lee, fraud protection.
Data, but I feel like I need to explain that.
It's good enough. It's good enough. We'll draw a picture. Shri, performance.
Immediate.
So can I thank, on behalf of John, well, firstly and foremost, sort of John and team at Modo25 for laying this event on, all the organisation and work that's gone into it. My glorious, wonderful and insightful panellists, but most of all you, the audience. There's a few people I know whose questions we haven't got to. I'd like to particularly thank Andrew Crowther, whose question remains unanswered, but is one particularly dear to my heart, and everyone else who's contributed. We will try to come back to you with an email summary from the Modo team. I hope you've all had an interesting time. We'd love any feedback. John, with any closing words you'd like to say?
No, just thank you very much for coming along. We'll share the video and then we'll chunk it down to answer the specific questions. The next session is going to be all about display and social and whether or not you should TikTok or not. And we're going to, Modo25, for those of you who haven't seen on social media, have just been appointed as one of Europe's first TikTok media partners. So we're hopefully going to get some representatives from TikTok on and talk about best practice, where are the opportunities, and how's this new platform going to influence how you fill your funnel.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much for taking the time to join us today.